going on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal Spaz Phoenix, the YWC Reality Check, here with the latest edition of your new weekend tradition. It's time to talk about a little bit of TNA and AAA. Now, I know everybody's talking about the Chamber right now. If you want to hear some of my thoughts on the Chamber, go check out Jake over at Countdown Ended. We went live with myself, Jake, and as well as Cody Oneidi talking about everything that happened at the Chamber, and I'm sure we'll talk more about the Chamber as things go on, especially when we've got a WWE Championship match coming up this Friday on SmackDown. But that's not the purpose of these. You guys see the logo, you guys see the title, and you guys know the drill at this point. We're here to talk about TNA and AAA. Now, TNA sort of moving through the motions this week. AAA taking us towards Rey de Reyes, which is getting more and more interesting as we go. TNA, we'll start with TNA, happened on Thursday, as it does, because it's Impact. One of the biggest things that I thought was potentially going to be the main event was the all-star, I guess you could say all-star tag team. It's the Nemeth brothers versus two champions. It's Leon Slater and Mike Santana. Thank you, Brain. Leon Slater and Mike Santana, the two of the three great champions in TNA right now, taking on the Nemethyses because they're shit disturbers and they make good opponents for the reigning X Division and World Champions. Also, we had Frankie Kazarian on commentary, which is never any kind of bad thing. Great match overall. The growing respect story between Mike Santana and Leon Slater is a thing. Like, hey, shit doesn't always go our way, but, you know, you had my back, I had your back, we've got a mutual respect. They're probably going to face at some point. They went back to reference last week what happened at the last pay-per-view, where Steve Maclin's interference brought Santana away and Leon Slater had to carry the load by himself. Pause. And it kind of happened the same way here, because Leon Slater is your X Division champion, and the guy with the Feast or Fire briefcase for the X Division championship match eventually is Eric Young. I've said for a long time now, I think they're going to put that title on Eric Young for a minuscule amount of time so that he can drop it to BDE, but that's another story for another day. There's an interview going around on the socials right now. I don't know how old it is, but it's BDE interviewing Paul Heyman and asking him why he doesn't wear a belt in his pants and such and so forth. It could be a million years old, and it just happens that I found it this particular weekend, but it's funny. Go check it out. Now, Eric Young came down at one point in this show. I will say, and I know people think this is the pettiest thing in the world, ring level ramp this week. I don't like the ring level ramp. It's not a good look. I've said it in NXT. I've said it in AEW. So I have to apply it to TNA as well. And when we get to AAA, they don't even have a ring level ramp. They have a ring level stage, and I don't like the look of that either. I'm not gonna lie. Eric Young came down, figured this was going to be the tit for tat. You know, Santana gets pulled away from one match, leaving Leon Slater. This would have been Leon Slater getting pulled away and leaving Mike Santana on his own, but they didn't do that. Mike Santana sort of watching out for his partner, trying to cut off the interference at the past, and once again, Mike Santana gets pulled away. Once again, Leon Slater has to hold the bag for the entire match, but this time there's not a moose to come and save them, and it's Nick Nemeth pins Leon Slater, so there's somebody else coming for the X Division Championship now. Is that a thing? It's interesting because, as I say, I don't want Leon Slater or Mike Santana. I can speak, I swear. It's been a long weekend. I don't want Slater or Santana to go heel, but I can see them being baby faces, but becoming sort of slightly wary of each other, where both of them have left the other one in a lurch, etc. Because at some point, Leon Slater's going to cash in option C, and we're going to get Santana versus Slater without anybody turning heel necessarily. And I think, you know, the Steve Maclins and the Eric Youngs, and let's not forget Steve Maclin and Eric Young had a partnership at one point. They could bring that back together because they're both being dickheads right now. Kaz is always there stirring the pot. The Nemeths, even though they were the opponents in this match, and even though they won the match, they were kind of an afterthought to all the storytelling that's going on at the moment. Great match overall. The storytelling, the outside elements, etc. It can be messy, it can be muddy, but if you're working with a firm foundation, I think that's what holds TNA in its place right now. Like I say, the three main male singles champions right now are Mike Santana, Leon Slater, and the newly returned and still experiencing his own vindication, Trey Miguel. Got to see Trey Miguel at Destiny last weekend. It was a lot of fun. He got screwed, though. He almost became the interim Destiny New Era champion, and that didn't happen because of Jax Williams, who was managed for one night by the personal concierge. So yes, I got to see Iceman live again, and that was a lot of fun. But they got strong champions on the men's side right now, and when you have the strong champions and you have those, I don't want to use the AEW terminology, but when you have those pillars, you can do a little bit of messy booking around them. Speaking of messy booking, not quite messy booking, but more like unfortunate timing, Dani Luna, who's now back from her visa issues out there in the UK. Dani Luna, who was supposed to be a ready and prime challenger for Lei Ying Li's Women's Knockouts Championship, never happened. We got that match tonight, this past Thursday rather, between Dani Luna and Lei Ying Li. And it was kind of an afterthought because Lei Ying Li's not the champion anymore. Right now it's sitting on the beautiful shoulder of Ariana Grace as part of the Ariana Grace Stacks, NXT Invasion, all that kind of thing. So here's a match that could have been, how do you want to say it? This match could have been the pay-per-view match, and now it's the hurdle to get to the title match that, I don't know, might not be as good. I like Ariana Grace, but I mean, Lei Ying Li is a better, more seasoned challenger for Dani Luna, and Dani Luna's pretty fucking great. What are they calling her? Like Deathmatch Dani Luna or whatever her nickname is. I would love to see her versus Chris Statlander because she's never been right at the top, and Chris Statlander, even though she's a champion in AEW right now, what does that mean in 2020? In the Big 26, what does being on the women's roster of AEW? By the way, have you seen the behind-the-scenes shots of the new ROH recording studio? Look them up. It's a lot of fun. Check out my pinned tweet on X. It's great. Dani Luna looked great in this. Lei Ying Li looked great in this. But Dani Luna's the one that's got a title shot coming, so she was going to get the win. Lei Ying Li, unfortunately, became the body that went down in that match. Alicia Edwards. Now, I want to say something really cool with TNA ever since they've got the new AMC deal. They do these backstage segments with Carlos Silva and Tommy Dreamer and whoever else happens to be around, and they're all around, a business table, and we really want to make a big deal. We really want to announce that we've just signed so-and-so to a new deal. They did a bunch of people that they signed right away as soon as the AMC deal was clear. But this one was Alicia Edwards, and I don't know, because she doesn't wrestle a lot. When she does, it's great, but she doesn't wrestle a lot. And she's playing manager to a team that she's recently separated from, and she's really sort of playing up this dramatic, I don't think I can resign, I don't think I should be here right now, things with me and Eddie are really bad, really awkward, the way that the system kind of left me behind and all that kind of thing. And then Moose randomly comes in, and he's kind of big brothering her a little bit, which doesn't do much for her as a character, but sort of like the whole, I heard something crazy, like you weren't going to re-sign. There's definitely a place for you. This is your home. Why don't you be my manager? And she does an about face to an almost comical level and re-signs her new TNA deal. So she's back to being a TNA talent. I don't know whether her actual contract ran out or whether this was just a beat in the storyline. But Alicia Edwards is now, I guess we say, officially Moose's manager. They're going to go up against the entire system, and let's be real, sooner or later she's going to turn on Moose and rejoin her husband in the system. Like, you can only suspend your disbelief for so long and believe that this woman is going to manage somebody that's going against her husband for so long. I mean, Becky Lynch lost her Intercontinental Championship last night, and her husband made a comeback later on in the night, and we're kind of supposed to pretend that those are two separate things, aren't we? Like, it's not great. For those of you that say that I never ever say anything bad about WWE, that's not a great bit. Speaking of the ladies, it's all about the ladies. Dani Luna, Alicia Edwards. Now let's get to Ash by Elegance and Mickie James. Mickie called out Ash, and they had a face-off, and basically ripped a strip off of her for what everybody else has been ripping a strip off of her for, doing the fake retirement, the fake walk away, just to have the comeback and just to, take out people, etc. And she talks about her own retirement, the last rodeo, the gunslinger, whatever her thing was, the gunslinger walking off into the sunset. They had a big face-off. They told each other off. Hey, don't forget that. I hate when they do this in wrestling because it just gets overplayed so much. We're going to see it again later on in this very episode when it happens to somebody else. But this whole idea of, hey, remember when you got fired from WWE and I opened the door for you? And that was coming from Mickie James, and that's not exactly a babyface thing, is it? That's like blackmail after the fact. It's not the coolest thing in the world. But it was just Ash and Mickie. There was no Elegance brand out there in the slightest. Until they got face-to-face, and until the Ash by Elegance brand popped up on the Tron, threatening a bunch of people in the back, including Mickie James' son. Mickie James leaves the ring, runs up the ramp, runs into M by Elegance, and then there's a 3-on-1 beatdown from M, Heather, and Ash by Elegance on the rampway, ending with a pretty sick McDT by Ash by Elegance on Mickie James. So Mickie James, if nothing else, is coming back for one more match, isn't she? I think she'll probably get some of the younger, newer babyface ladies around her to sort of divert M by Elegance and Heather by Elegance out of the way, so it's her and Ash one-on-one. Maybe, what's the next one? Sacrifice? Maybe that's the match. I don't know. I would have thought if they were building something like this, it would be a Slammiversary type match, or it would be a Bound for Glory type match. But as neither one of those is right around the corner, I don't really know I don't hate it. I've got a mixed bag history with my opinion of Mickie James. I think post WWE she went off and did some pretty well anti-protesting that was a little bit obnoxious, and while she's part of the women's revolution in pro wrestling in general, but in particular WWE, I think she takes her share and then some of the credit sometimes, but it's not to say that she's not fantastic. It's not to say that she's not a pioneer, especially in TNA. She could be considered a TNA legend. Her hubby's over in the other company, so is she going to show up on SmackDown sooner or later? Who the hell knows? It's a good little side thing for Ash, but obviously Ash is going to go for the Women's Championship at some point, but right now it would be her versus Ariana Grace, which is heel versus heel, or if Dani Luna wins, Dani Luna is also kind of a heel, are you going to do Ash versus Dani? Ash versus Dani would be a hell of a match. The dynamic would have to shift slightly. We're going to get, what's her name? Jody Threat, thank you, Brain. We're going to get Jody Threat in the mix as well, so maybe Ash by Elegance gets back into the title mix once we've got the championship back on a babyface. We will see how it goes. The fact that, unless I'm forgetting something, Jody Threat wasn't even mentioned in either of the ladies' segments, does say something, though. Speaking of the ladies, who was I incredibly impressed with a couple weeks ago in the mix tag when she was in there with Tasha Steelz and Mustafa Ali and Elijah? It was Jada Stone. Jada Stone had a singles match against Tasha Steelz, and she defeated Tasha Steelz in another amazing showcase. And Tasha Steelz, being on the other side of the coin here, cannot go without credit. I think she's another one that deserves to be in that women's title mix and isn't quite there yet. Jada Stone is just looking fantastic for somebody who pretty much has been there, maybe 2 or 3 weeks as far as the main show. I'm pretty sure somebody will correct me down below, or you can find somebody with far more knowledge of this than me, somebody like a Ringside or Anthony from the Wrestling for Life Network, who does a lot more TNA-specific content, could tell you. She's probably been on Explosion before. People have probably seen her before TNA before. As far as I'm concerned, I really only watch Impact, and I don't pay attention to a lot of indie stuff. I'm sorry, I just don't. So to me, as a character, she's 3 or 4 weeks old, and she's impressing me like hell based on that context. 3-on-1 after the bell because the good hands are out there. Agent Zero is out there. Funny thing for you, Agent Zero is the next one that's going to take on Tarek at Destiny Wrestling for their World Championship after he defeated Zilla Fatu by countout. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. First time seeing Zilla Fatu, though, so that was a lot of fun, and I hope he comes back as well. Trey Miguel, Zilla Fatu, both kind of got screwed over in really wishy-washy type matches at the last Destiny show that I was at, but doesn't mean I didn't have a good time. Doesn't mean I'm not still sitting there in the stands like an obnoxious dickhead getting kick him in the shin over as the Destiny primary chant for a Destiny show. Steve Maclin stuff, man. Tom Hannafin comes out. He's tasked with interviewing Steve Macklin because he's the one that went to the upper echelon people and said, hey, let's let Macklin say something, even though he's, kayfabe, been fired and whatnot. Tom Hannafin, I will say, as somebody who's normally just on commentary talking about the matches and whatever, and not usually on screen as a character, so to speak, he did pretty good in this match, talking about the history between him and Macklin, and hey man, if you were a little more relaxed, a little bit more calm, I'd love to be sitting in a bar right now having this conversation over a beer, but instead we're doing this here. At some point, when are you going to take some responsibility for your actions, and this and that and the next thing? And Macklin does the same thing that Mickie James did, is the whole, hey, didn't I get you your job here, and now you're killing it on commentary, but didn't I get you that job? And Tom Hannafin coming back with, yeah, and how many times have you fucked up and been written up and been put on suspension and all this type of thing? So they're telling a story, but they're telling a story entirely consisting of stuff that hasn't happened on screen, which is hard to grasp in a lot of ways. I like the Macklin story. I don't think his personal history with the commentator was the strongest way to go, but at the same time, it ended up with Macklin beating up a commentator, and that's been a pretty effective thing since the Jim Ross days when he was set on fire by Kane, as the commentators are seen kind of like the referees in the, oh my god, these are just regular people, how dare you, a wrestler, touch these regular people. It's a good bit of business. Tom Hannafin, like I say, did really well in this. Steve Macklin as the guy who, he's doing a little bit of a Drew McIntyre of like, yeah, I've been a dickhead, but I'm justified. Here's this, here's this, here's this, here's this. So he's doing well. Tom Hannafin did well in the role. I wonder if somebody else that was willing to stand more firm in Macklin's face would have been better. Obviously, it's going to lead to him having a match with Mike Santana, and that's how we're going to brush away the fact that he got the fired briefcase in the Feast or Fired match. But I don't think you put him face to face with Santana yet. I think when we get closer to Sacrifice, you announce the unsanctioned match. Santana, I can see Santana going to Daria Ray or Santino, and I have to do it one more time. When you've got upset stomach, diarrhea Ray, whatever people are doing with the Daria Ray thing. Let me try that one again. When you get nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, Daria Ray. There we go. How about I tell the whole joke, not just a little bit of it? It's tired in here. But I can see Mike Santana going in there and saying, give me an unsanctioned match with Steve Macklin, and the response from somebody like a Daria Ray being like, okay, cool, you can have your unsanctioned match with Steve Macklin, but if he wins, he's got his job back. Which means that either you're going to flip-flop the title onto a Steve Macklin that currently doesn't have a job, which is an interesting way to go in your storytelling, or you're going to have Mike Santana, who won and kept his title, but he did it by beating up an unemployed guy. That also doesn't really work storyline-wise. So I don't know. They're doing a lot of cool things. It just makes me think they could be doing more cool things. That's all I've got. That's really, really, really all I've got. Now, little bits and bobs and pieces of stuff. Whenever going back to the first match of the night, whenever you've got two champions in the same match, you've got two different potentials for storyline that you're mushing together. But we do know that it gave us a chance with Santana in the ring to talk about the Steve Macklin issue, and with the Eric Young interference, we can bring that in as well. As I said, the Nemeths sort of being pushed to the side, even though they were the opponents in the match, is not necessarily ideal. But Eric Young and Leon Slater is an interesting match. Santana and Macklin is going to be a title match that's more than just a title match. So we've pushed everything forward. We spent a lot of time on the ladies division. Danny Luna, Lei Ying Lee. There was no Ariana Grace on the show tonight, but there was lots of talk about her because Danny Luna is chasing that title. Jody Threat is chasing that title. Alicia Edwards' contract became a storyline point for about 5 seconds or so. Ash and Mickey and the rest of the members of the Elegance brand were all in there. Jada Stone and Tasha Steelz were doing some pretty cool stuff here. So you've got the X Division scene and the world title scene, and in between, it was ladies' night. And I'm thinking, oh, what a night. Switching over to AAA. AAA, again, a shorter show, not as much to talk about, but we can talk about a couple of things. One of the things that I predicted 2 podcasts ago in my early fantasy WrestleMania thing that I did, way too early to be doing WrestleMania predictions, but I did one anyway because I had a day off and I thought, hey, extra content. I thought maybe they put Americano versus Americano on WrestleMania. It'll be fun. It'll be nothing too fantastic. Winner gets to face Danhausen. Let's just say that. But instead, we opened up this week's episode of AAA with El Grande Americano Kaiser. Like Grande Kaiser, Grande Gable, like will we go like that? But he was coming out, speaking in Spanish, talking about how, this isn't Raw, this isn't WWE, this is AAA, this is Mexico, these are my people, and the people love them. The whole ironic thing that I will still say about this is when the El Grande Americano character came out, everybody, all the white knights, all the Justice Warriors and all that immediately hopped on the, oh my god, this is going to be so offensive, this is going to be so, racially divisive and all this sort of thing, and then they take the character to Mexico and the Mexican fans love it. So maybe not talking for other people is a thing. But he comes out and he talks about how the Gable Americano is fake and he uses AI and he doesn't even speak Spanish. He uses a translator and he uses editors and he doesn't even know how to talk to the people. And he even calls him Shorty a couple of times because of the Shorty G thing. And he says everything he has put out there in Spanish has been pre-produced or has been done in AI, and I've got a friend in the back that's going to prove it, because if he's really one of the people, if he can really speak Spanish, then he can go give us an interview right now. And they throw to the back, and the timing was really bad too, because it took a couple of times of him throwing to the back for the video footage in the back to actually come up. And it was Pimpernella Escalata, I think is the name of this person, she, they, them, I'm not sure, dressed in like all their flamboyant garb, and then on top of that dressed as an interview person, knocking on Gable's door, trying to interview him, but really just saying, hey, did you want your quesadillas with cheese or without cheese? And he says, no bueno, and Pimpernella like follows him into the dressing room and tries to like push him to speak more Spanish, and ends up beating up Pimpernella, leaving Pimpernella, for dead, so to speak. And we come back after the break, and big old neck brace, and oh my god, Americano, the real Americano, which is the second Americano, which is the Kaiser Americano, you must go fight for me, you must go fight for all of Mexico. And I should have seen this coming, because if you remember, the first qualifier for the Rey de Reyes tournament was supposed to have Kaiser Americano in it. Kaiser Americano was handcuffed to a piece of workout equipment by Gable Americano, and Gable Americano not only took his spot in the match, but also used it to qualify. So going into tonight's main event, the people that have qualified so far are Gable Americano and La Parca. Very important to note. So now, Pimpernella, who's supposed to be in the match tonight against Ethan Page and Omos and El Hijo de Dr. Wagner Jr., my favorite wrestling name in all of AAA, now there's an open spot because, possible cervical neck damage and rah, not cleared to compete, etc. But there's this big dramatic in the back, please fight for me, please fight for Mexico, to Ludwig Kaiser, who's I think German, but don't worry about it. Don't let the facts get in the way of a really funny story. After that, we see a replay last week of, this is where we get into that babyface and heel thing again. Laredo Kid defending his Cruiserweight Championship successfully against TJP by holding the rope, and the post-match beatdown that he got from TJP after the match, because if there's anything better than a really good heel, it's a sort of justified heel. Again, I'm going to make the Drew McIntyre comparison. But TJP tried to cheat, got caught. Fair enough. The babyface champion also cheated, didn't get caught. The heel now who has lost can not only say, hey, you knocked me for cheating, how come you didn't knock him for cheating? But they can also just be mad in general that they lost to cheating. So TJP, still a bad guy, still a dick, still did the the stretch and stomp on the belt on the stairs last week, he's still the bad guy. But he, like I say, he's the justified bad guy. And in the meantime, we throw to our next match, which is another number one contenders for the Cruiserweight Championship style match. And it's Dragon Lee and Jack Cartwheel. They had a great match, as you can imagine. Lots of flippy-dippy doo-dahs, as they say. Dragon Lee's pretty great. Obviously, especially when you hear Rey Mysterio talking about Dragon Lee on commentary, talking about him being the future of Lucha Libre, he's probably going to win. Jack Cartwheel is a good guy to put in there with him to give him a really good match, and Jack Cartwheel held up his own in this match, quite frankly. There were more kicks to the face here than there was in Finn versus Punk, and have you seen the footprint on CM Punk's face this morning? Check your socials. It doesn't look nice. Lots of bloody faces, lots of bloody noses last night, but, the chamber wasn't violent enough. Dragon Lee defeats Jack Cartwheel in a really, really good match. TJP comes out afterwards to cut a promo about how he got screwed the previous week. He's talking down to Dragon Lee. He says, I guess because you won this, you think you're number one? At best, you're number two. He gets jumped by Laredo Kid. They spill into the ring. They both go for TJP. That's Dragon Lee and Laredo Kid, but they hit each other in the process, a little bit of accidental contact. The three of them start brawling. The three of them take each other out, and the last person in the world who should be anywhere near that belt, who's the guy that just lost this most recent number one contenders match, Jake Cartwheel, is the only one left standing in the ring, and he's left standing in the ring posing with the championship. So it's false valor in its most egregious form, but that whole idea of, oh shit, everybody's down, I guess I win. He's doing the Mr. Bean thing. It's a race. I hope I win. He grabs the belt. He holds it up. It's fine. Pretty sure that we're pushing into the pay-per-view with either Laredo Kid TJP Part 2, or they're throwing Dragon Lee into the mix to make it a triple threat. If you throw Jack Cartwheel, who's lost both qualifiers that he's been in, into this match as well, it might make the match more exciting, but I can't say that it makes a lick of sense. But kudos to him for looking around at all the dead bodies and grabbing whatever spare gold he could possibly grab. Now, we get a quick announcement for next week. It's the last qualifier for the Rey de Reyes tournament, for the Rey de Reyes, who's going to win the sword from Penta at the pay-per-view match, the last one, and it's really intriguing for a lot of things. A lot of characters that I like, a lot of characters that wind everybody else up, and as I said, after the Danhausen reveal at Elimination Chamber, those type of situations aren't going anywhere anytime soon. It's Santos Escobar versus Mr. Iguana versus Psycho Clown versus Abismo Negro to fill that final spot, because we've got a qualifier this week, and it's Ethan Page from NXT versus Omos versus El Hijo de Dr. Wagner Jr. versus El Grande Americano Kaiser. Lots and lots of things going on here. Lots of very predictable things happen here. A lot of Ethan Page being the smart heel, ducking out of the ring, letting the other three fight, ducking out of the way of Omos at all costs, except for when he tries to make Omos a temporary partner of his. A lot of Grande Americano and El Hijo de Dr. Wagner Jr. trying to double team Omos. A lot of Omos manhandling two and sometimes three of them at once. He's got in sort of a deadlift, another one on his back, and he still manages to spin and kick Ethan in the face at one point. Now, Wagner gets the upper hand. He goes for a fall at one point, and he gets pulled out of the ring. And who is it? Obviously, because there's a separate story going on, it's Santos Escobar. Gee, are they building a match between Wagner and Santos Escobar? Fine, don't worry about it. Now, Americano gets himself into a bit of trouble with Omos, and who comes down to help him, even though he's the babyface, but fatal four-ways are no disqualification. So Rayo and Bravo coming down and handcuffing Omos to the ring is perfectly legal, Cole. But they get their asses handed to them by El Grande Americano Original with a chair, etc. And then, for reasons, Grande Americano Original is taken out by La Parca, who's already in the Rey de Reyes match, and according to commentary, has, I think they said, the best history in the history of the Rey de Reyes tournament. I don't know that that's true. I just started watching AAA last year. I like La Parca. We had a random La Parca appeared. It's fine. Don't worry about it. At the end of the day, Paige is tapping, and there's no referee to see it. OG Americano takes out Rayo and Bravo. La Parka takes out the OG, like I just said, and Americano gets the win through Healy schemy means, even though he's the babyface. And I think he pinned Ethan Page. So I expect when we go to NXT this week, Ethan Page will get made fun of by not only losing all of his belts. They really went to town on Ethan Page, on how Ethan Page is having a bad time right now. He's lost his North American title to Miles Bourne. Awesome. Really, really happy for Miles Bourne. He's lost his mixed tag championships and his mixed tag partner to injury when they lost the titles to Lola Vice and Mr. Iguana. He's having a bad time. They are doing a better job on AAA than they are on NXT of sort of documenting the downfall of Ethan Page. I'm sure that will be something going forward. I'm sure he'll have a match next weekend at Rey de Reyes, but we will get to that when we get to that. Lots and lots of things happening. We're going to get the Americano versus the Americano match in the Rey de Reyes final, but there's going to be two other people involved. We've got Ethan Page and El Hijo de Dr. Wagner Jr. have an ongoing thing. We've got El Hijo de Dr. Wagner Jr. and Santos Escobar have an ongoing thing. The Cruiserweight division, they're trying to make that a thing, and it is a lot of fun, even though Jack Cartwheel should not be the one holding the belt at the end of that segment. It's fine, don't worry about it. But any combination we're going to get of Laredo Kid, Dragon Lee, and TJP is not going to hurt my feelings. I still do think at the end of the day it's going to be nighttime, but at the end of the day it's also going to be TJP holding that AAA Cruiserweight Championship. But in the meantime and in between time, so far we have 4 Rey de Reyes. We've got Dom versus Vikingo with all the stipulations involved. It's going to be a no disqualification match. If Vikingo loses, he can't fight for the title again. If Dom loses, he has to leave AAA completely. We've got the Viking Raiders taking on the Psycho Circus, which is why I'm pretty damn sure that Psycho Clown's not winning next week. It's fine, don't worry about it. We've got, I'm pretty sure, something going on with the Cruiserweight division that hasn't quite been completely set in stone just yet. I'm pretty sure we're going to get El Hijo de Dr. Wagner Jr. and Santos Escobar solidified onto that card as well. And the Rey de Reyes tournament itself is going to be El Grande Americano versus La Parka versus the winner of Santos, Iguana, Psycho Clan, and Abismo Negro next week. Lots and lots of fun things happening on AAA, considering that it's like a 55-minute episode every week. And more often than not, as you've seen in these podcasts, I'm coming out here with more talking points from there than I am necessarily with TNA. But TNA is in that moving pieces around the board. This gear is turning the next gear. The machine is still running. It just hasn't reached its final form yet, or whatever metaphor you want to use. The next big pay-per-view that they have is what? I can't even think. I know that they've got Sacrifice coming up soon, but I don't know what the next big one is. Is it Revolution? Maybe, perhaps. But, like I say, a great night on TNA for the ladies in particular, but the X Division champion and the world champion are still heavily involved in their own personal stories. AAA right now, being a shorter show, is all about building towards Rey de Reyes. Like I said, they really put a heavy focus on the Cruiserweight division this week, which is nice. The qualifier for Rey de Reyes had a lot of different stories coming out of it. A great week for both shows overall. I am really liking doing these little side pods that just give me a little bit of a chance to talk about AAA and TNA. Let me know what you guys think of them down in the box below. I'm looking up at the timer right now. This is probably the shortest one I've done since I've started doing this, but when they give me more to talk about, I will have more to talk about. Until then, I've been Spaz, your YWC Reality Check. Subscribe up there, talk down there, start a conversation, keep all these conversations going. Don't be a stranger. I will talk to each and every last one of you later, but for right now, I am tagging out. Bye, guys.